From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store.
Hi, everyone. Bill Rentschler alongside Sports Director Kevin Suits in the 1011 Now streaming studio. Another edition of the REPORT Husker Show brought to you by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Kevin, there's a lot of things to talk about in the Husker world, but probably one big one, and that's Dana Holgorsen, new offensive coordinator for Matt Rule and the Husker football program, and we're going to see what that looks like in 2 days out in Los Angeles.
It's been a smooth transition, according to Matt Rule, switching his play caller with 3 games to go in the regular season. Nebraska, of course, going from Marcus Satterfield to Dana Holgorsen, who has 13 years of head coaching experience. And I thought it was fascinating on Thursday when Rule was asked to kind of recap the last few days at practice. How have the players responded to this? How has it gone with this coaching staff? Rule says it's not that big of a transition. It's just a different voice communicating with the players.
You'd have to imagine they're probably working out of the existing playbook. I don't think Holgorsen's going to come in there and try and install a whole new playbook, maybe a couple new plays here and there, but same stuff, different voice, like you said.
And that's what makes this so fascinating, because this is an outside hire in the final month of the regular season. You know, it's not uncommon for a coaching staff to change its play caller at this point in the season, but to bring in somebody who hasn't even been with this team through fall camp, through the non-con, and then through the meat of the conference season. It's, in the words of Matt Rule, he called this an epic move. I think we'll find out how epic this really is, and that's, can Nebraska win at USC? Can Nebraska get to a bowl game this year? They're still sitting on 5 wins and trying to snap a 3-game losing streak this week in L.A.
And this is something that really has never really happened in hiring someone from outside this late in the season. I mean, you haven't heard of anything, since this move has happened where you could point to, it happened here however long ago. No,
coaching changes happen, but not like this.
Yeah.
Again, like the guy that's going to be holding the sheet and saying whether to run or pass on 2nd and 4 on Saturday was not even with this group of players 2 weeks ago. And granted, I think Dana Holgorsen has probably watched every play multiple times over from the entire season. He has watched practice. He has been in meetings with this coaching staff, and he has his own unique ideas. So you made the comment, Bill, that the playbook isn't going to look a whole lot different. I think there's going to be some new wrinkles, though.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to find out, does he want to give Ja'Cory Barney the football more? Does he want to give it to him less? Will Heinrich Haber get on the field? Do they need to give the ball more to Jamal Banks? Those are the things that Dana Holgorsen gets to influence. So if you're looking for, if you're playing the video game Madden, if you're looking to switch out the Rams playbook for the Eagles playbook, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you could pick a couple of things in there, and you can decide on 3rd and 3, are you going to have Ramir Johnson in the game or Emmett Johnson in the game?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the influence of Dana Holgorsen. And, man, is there a whole lot of fascination with this upcoming game between a team that is 1 win away from bowl eligibility and a USC team that has played a pretty challenging schedule, and they're pretty good, though the record doesn't totally indicate it. USC is 4-5 on the season.
They've played LSU to open the season. They played at Michigan. They hosted Penn State. They still have Notre Dame left on their schedule.
Penn State to overtime.
Yeah.
That was a great game.
It was. So they played a really tough schedule, and they're going to be going through their own kind of changing sands over there. They have a new quarterback that they're going to be playing this weekend, Jaden Mayava.
Yeah, and your guess is yes,
something like
that. Nice work.
UNLV transfer quarterback.
Correct. Miller Moss was their starting quarterback for the first 9 games of the season. USC is making a change. They've lost 4 of their last 5. So similarly, but not quite as similar, they know that something has to change because they're trying to flip the fortunes. The Trojans still have bowl eligibility that they're chasing as well. They're the favored team in this, so they're going to switch up the quarterback, though Miller Moss played very well in the early stages of this season.
He's thrown, I think, for 2,600 yards so far this year. So again,
he's 18 touchdown passes.
Yeah, he's no slouch. And so to bench that in favor of someone who really hasn't played for you, it takes some stones by Lincoln Riley.
Now, getting back to Dana Holgorsen and Nebraska's offense and what it could look like, keep this in mind as our listeners, our viewers, and the fans are watching this game on Saturday. Despite what Dana Holgorsen may want to do, the defensive backs lining up against Nebraska's wide receivers run 6'3", 6'2", 6'4", 6'3". There are some very large bodies that are going to be covering Isaiah Nair and Ja'Cory Barney Jr. and Thomas Fidone and all the guys on the edge. So that's not a great situation to be in to try to just open up the playbook unless Nebraska can beat them with speed. So again, there's a lot of fascination to this game.
Comes from the Mike Leach coaching tree, and anyone who knows anything about Mike Leach knows it was an interesting guy, and so Dana Holgorsen's offense, I'm sure, will have some wrinkles to it, kind of like you said.
Dana Holgorsen, the way he has structured his offenses at West Virginia and Houston, they are in the mold of the air raid. But don't get that confused with he just likes to throw the ball. They've had these running principles. And when Matt Rule described Holgorsen's coaching style on Monday, I thought it was fascinating that he says he's committed to the run and he's aggressive in the pass. I mean, if you think about that again. He's committed to the run, aggressive in the pass.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, air raid, generally speaking, is just
truck it all over.
You're throwing the ball 50-plus times a game.
Yeah.
And you're going to have some very gaudy passing numbers, and then you might rush for 30 to 70 yards, and you're only rushing because you're facing second and short, third and short, and you just want to move the sticks. But Dana Holgorsen is committed to the run, yet aggressive in the pass. And he's been very successful in the red zone. And if there's one thing that I think fans should maybe cling to with the possibility of Dana Holgorsen calling plays leading to changed results for Nebraska, it's getting the ball into the end zone, which has been a very big challenge for Nebraska over the past month plus. Holgorsen has a track record of being able to score at a high rate from inside the 20, and if that changes for Nebraska, I think the results start to change, whether it's this week or perhaps down the stretch. You got to assume the next 3 games, Bill, they're going to be close. USC, Wisconsin, and Iowa. I don't see any of those games being wide margins. So if you're close, can you make sure that you get 3? Or maybe instead of getting 3, you're getting 6, 7.
Make a big difference.
It's going to make a huge difference.
So Nebraska all time has never beaten USC. They're 0-4-1. Their most recent meeting came back 2014, the Holiday Bowl, where they lost that 45-42, and then I think it's 2007 season, the last time Nebraska played in the Coliseum against USC.
And then the year before that, when Bill Callahan was Nebraska, did you remember this? Nebraska welcomed USC. It was like the premier number one. Like, that team was stacked, and it was one of the biggest games on the college football schedule that week. I believe College Game Day was here.
Yep, I was there. I was there.
This town was a buzz. I remember the Friday night before Nebraska hosted USC. Help me with what year that? 2005, 2004. The Friday night before, we were running all of our high school football coverage, Bill, and we're doing sports overtime, and we're running from game to game. And at the end of it, I remember thinking, ain't nobody talking about high school football. Everybody had Nebraska USC on their minds.
2007. They lost that 49-31.
It was not a close game.
I was making Valentino's pizzas in Memorial Stadium for that game.
Wow.
I know.
I was running around on the sidelines. And what was the final score?
It was 49-31.
I don't remember it being that close.
Yeah, I think it might have been closer on the scoreboard than it actually was, the actual game. But have you ever covered a game in the Coliseum?
No.
This is going to be a treat for you.
This is the last of all the Big Ten stadiums, including the new additions, including the ones on the East Coast. I've been to every single one of them but the Coliseum. Nice. So this will complete the Big 18 cycle.
A little feather in your cap there. That's
sure.
Pretty exciting.
And, it's going to host the Olympics in a few years.
28, I think.
Correct.
Yeah. So that should be exciting. Really quickly, Kevin, because you got to run. You got places to go. Want to ask you, volleyball kind of hitting their final stretch here. They only have 6 matches remaining, but these last 6, you got at Penn State. You're hosting Minnesota tonight, Wisconsin again. At home in a couple weeks. It's going to be a tough stretch.
It feels like the season starts again, doesn't it?
It does.
because Nebraska has been on the road for back-to-back weeks. So it's been a while since there's been a home match inside the Devaney Center, and you got to figure it will be rocking tonight as Nebraska, ranked number 2 in the country, welcomes number 16 Minnesota, and the roar that will occur when Taylor Landfair is introduced is going to be special. She, of course, entered the portal after last season at Minnesota. She was the Big Ten Player of the Year 2 seasons ago at Minnesota and is now thriving at Nebraska. She's come on strong here over the past month.
So they sold out the Washington Arena and the Oregon Arena on their West Coast trip. My sister-in-law is in Seattle. I asked her if she was going to go. She said tickets were like $300 just for a single. I was like, that's on the low end here in Lincoln. You should have taken advantage of that. But pretty impressive, their West Coast swing. Yeah,
so, but those big road matches, they're kind of past, and now it's, as John Cook would say, it's kind of the home stretch. They're making that final corner. They're hitting that final corner and about to have to really kick toward the end of the regular season here as Nebraska is in the lead in the Big Ten, undefeated in the conference with 1 loss on the season. And, man, these 3 teams at the top of the league, they're pretty stinking good. Mm-hmm. Nebraska, Wisconsin, Penn State. Penn State's very good this year. Mm-hmm. And Minnesota's not too far off.
Before we let you go, one last thing. You're a college basketball voter. What have you made of the Husker men and women basketball? Both perfect to start the season. They're going to have tough games starting next week. They got Husker men have St. Mary's up in South Dakota and then Creighton next week.
Correct. So let's table that question for after the next week of competition because both the women and the men will really be tested over the next week. Early impressions, though, fine, I'll give you this answer. Just a quick. I think the women are pretty good. Very impressed with Alexis Markowski. Mm-hmm. The men, I've been a little bit underwhelmed. They're not shooting the ball very well through this 3-0 start. Mm-hmm. And again, let's see when the competition raises for Nebraska. I still think they might have a pretty decent team, but we haven't seen them play at a very high level to this point. Yet they are 3-0, and Fred Hoiberg even jokes that he's already having some sleepless nights. I'm like, Coach, you're a week into the season.
I'm sure, that starts early and won't finish.
Save the tossing and turning for when Indiana, Purdue, and Michigan State are on the schedule.
That's right. All right, well, Kevin, appreciate your time as always. You got you're heading out there, I think, tomorrow, right?
Correct.
So we'll have to look for your coverage again, checking off that last stadium, the Coliseum. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts.
And when this trip is booked, you don't know that Dana Holgorsen is going to be the offensive coordinator. You didn't know Nebraska would still be stuck at 5 wins and playing for bowl eligibility. This has potential to be a pretty significant game in the current era of Nebraska football. Mm-hmm. If the Huskers are able to have a great offensive performance and have that breakthrough win, number 6 in the bowl drought, I mean, this would be a pretty big moment. So very fascinated to see how it all plays out on Saturday in Los Angeles. Fox broadcast, Jason Benetti doing the play-by-play.
That's your guy. You like Jason Benetti.
Love Jason Benetti.
3 o'clock Central Time kickoff. It'll be 1 o'clock for you out there. Kevin, appreciate your time. We'll watch for your coverage. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of good stuff coming out of L.A. So appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching. Keep tuned to 1011 on air and online for all of your latest Husker headlines. Until next time, hope everyone has a nice Thursday.
You've been listening to the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch the REPORT on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and download the 1011